This video is for all of my fellow progressives on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And this is also for everyone who lives in the 1st District of Maryland, as I have outlined here. So if you live in this part of Maryland, go watch this video because this affects your life. So here we go. This is Andy Harris. He is the only national Republican from Maryland, and he represents the 1st District of Maryland since 2011. And of course, since 2013, he's been my congressman since we moved down here on the Eastern Shore. And he is pure evil and pure awful. Here's to an extent of how bad he is. He's against gay rights. He's against women's rights to be able to control their bodies. He thinks blacks have everything always coming to them. He doesn't think global warming's real. He sucks up to Trump 24/7 and defends all his horrible economic, domestic, and foreign policies. He's a Christian fundamentalist extremist, and he's so anti-drug that 2 years ago, when Washington, D.C. tried to legalize weed, he tried to do a very, very shady move that tried to crack down on them being able to do so, that caught like everyone off guard, and he actually had to back down due to major pressure on him if he continued to do so. There are more things bad about him, but this is like the most glaring, obvious problems with him. He is all around a very, very bad guy, and he's blatantly callous and cruel, and the very definition of a regressive. Now, despite all these horrible things he's done, he's been reelected 3 times in a row, much to my dismay, voting against him both times. But of course, now that Trump got elected, he and the rest of the Republicans have taken a whole bunch of shit lately in their most recent town halls and stuff. Matter of fact, most recent town hall Harris did back in May, full of Republicans and his supporters, they booed him throughout the entire thing. It was awesome. So obviously Harris is in a very bad position, hopefully, to win next year in 2018. So, to make this right, we need the perfect candidate to go after him. And this time around, we might have stumbled across one. This is Allison Galbraith, who is running to be a Democrat's nominee down here for the 1st District to take him on. And I found her back in April when she ripped Harris a new asshole on opposing universal health care, which, by the way, I forgot to mention he does. And just like Bernie Sanders, nothing but policy and policy and policy, fucking day in and day out, just hammering Harris over the head with the fact that he's a piece of goddamn shit. And if you take a look at her policies, she might very well be a very good candidate to be a Justice Democrat. Which, for all of you that don't know, the Justice Democrats are going to try and actually elect progressives and try and kick out all the neoliberal and corporate Democrats so we can actually kick the shit out of people like Andy Harris. Now, like I said earlier, Allison's main thing, which most of the time I hear her talk about, is universal health care, which she is for, so that's a major plus, unlike Harris. But on this video, I'm going to go on her site and show you guys all the issues that she's for. And I think when you hear all this, I think you probably would agree she would probably be a very good Justice Democrat, which, by the way, I actually tried to contact Justice Democrats on Twitter back in April or May when I first found Allison to try and get them to get in contact with her, but unfortunately, I don't think that's happened yet, so hopefully this will be successful this time around. So here's the issues. So here is her on healthcare to get things started, and as you can see, not only does she support it, but she also points out Obamacare's flaws, and that it's still private healthcare that controls everything, along with the insurance companies and the pharmaceuticals. And of course, we're still paying higher premiums, which under Obamacare, the rate has slowed down, but still going up. And she also points out the undeniable, undebatable fact that under universal health care, which is done in other countries in the world, have better outcomes at cheaper the cost. And also, Allison is a small business owner, which of course that would help because she would no longer have to pay for her employees' health care. And she wants to improve access to low-cost prescriptions, so hopefully if Bernie's bill to import drugs from Canada is still blocked by the time, hopefully she'll be elected in and actually vote for it. She also supports expanded Medicare and Medicaid. And of course, one thing that Harrison is fervently against, helping get better access to reproductive and mental health. So all across the board, she is awesome on this. And now we get to the economic opportunity page, which she supports clean energy, so she's for the green revolution. And for all of you that don't know, on the eastern shore of Maryland, especially off the coast of Ocean City, we've been trying for years and years to get a wind farm built off the Atlantic coast. And guess who is opposed to that? Andy fucking Harris. So that's another major plus for Allison here. She wants to do an infrastructure bill, which we need in the country since our infrastructure has a D+, which is atrocious. And she also supports investing in digital infrastructure, which is high-speed broadband internet for all of us, which us on the Eastern Shore, we don't really get high-speed internet that much since we're in rural area pretty much. So that would be a major plus for everyone. And she wants to continue doing training and educational programs and, of course, expand healthcare expansion down here, which there's pretty much like only one hospital down here. That's how bad it is. She also supports safe working environments for workers, equal pay for equal work, paid vacation and sick leave, paid maternity leave, a livable minimum wage, and to help it make it easier for veterans to get back into the workforce. All around, that is absolutely awesome. And of course, if you all don't remember, our governor, Larry Hogan, actually blocked sick leave a couple months ago. So that would be a major plus for us to be able to get that nationwide too, not just in Maryland. However, there's one little critique about this. And Allison, I know you're not watching, but you need to listen to this, because I want you to win very badly. You need to be very careful when you talk about equal pay for equal work. Because in the context that's usually brought up as, it's usually referring to the wage gap, which is heavily promoted as being 77 cents or whatever to the man's dollar, which of course that does not account for the same work and other factors and stuff. And if you add that in, it actually is 91 to 95 cents. So if you're going to bring up like the wage gap and stuff, you better get that point right, because you're going to piss off a lot of people and my fellow progressives to not vote for you. So if you want to win, you may want to tone down on the equal pay for equal work. And if you bring it up, you need to bring up, if you're going to bring up the wage gap, that it's 91 to 95 cents, not the 70-something cents. But other than that, this is spot on. Now we get to the education part, and as you can see, she supports universal education too, and trying to get rid of the student debt crisis, which is very needed since that's over $1 trillion in debt that you can't even declare bankruptcy on, and that is a major burden on the economy. And also, Andy Harris is against fixing both of those things. And she also supports expanded vocational programs, which would be also very, very beneficial. However, I also have a little bit of a concern here. She didn't say anything about it, at least not from what I can see from here. Is hopefully that she does not support that regressive debunked crap that is charter schools, which also Andy Harris supports. So, Allison, if you want to get a lot more support, you also got put on the record that you're against that as well. But other than that, awesome across the board. After that, it's anti-corruption and fair elections. She wants to overturn Citizens United and prohibit politicians from raising funds from interests they regulate, and limit campaign contributions and fundraising activities by lobbyists. Now, of course, unfortunately, overturn Citizens United would be kind of difficult since that was a Supreme Court ruling, so you might pretty much, the only option would be another Supreme Court ruling or a constitutional amendment, which might be the only option at this point. But yeah, prohibiting politicians from raising funds from interests they regulate, that'll pretty much be every single Trump appointment, every single pretty much Republican, and every single Democrat pretty much that are in all these committees in the government. And also, this would greatly hurt Andy Harris too, because he takes a shit ton of money from all these assholes. There is one more thing left, but it's mostly about veterans pretty much and how to help them out. So there's nothing really much to say because she's already said pretty much earlier about helping veterans and stuff. So I'm going to end it off here. But you can go on her site to check it out. So yeah, Allison sounds fantastic to hopefully take down Andy Harris next year. So if you want to read more about her and maybe hopefully contribute, go here. Also, here's her Twitter handle if any of you want to check her out. Also, another thing I need to add in too if you are going to vote in the primaries next year in Maryland, regardless, Democrat, Republican, or whatever, you need to register with one of the parties since this is a close primary. So if you're going to vote with Allison with me next year, start registering as a Democrat now. Wait too long and you won't be able to. So hopefully she'll win and beat Andy Harris next year. And hopefully she can get in contact with Justice Democrats and really help her out, because I think she'd be more than qualified to be part of them. So hopefully this will be successful.